Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this live stream event. My name is Alexia, and I am the Program Manager of the Microsoft Reactor Toronto. I will be sharing session resources with you in the chat, but before we begin, I'd like to quickly review two items, our Code of Conduct and Event Guidelines. First, please take a moment to review our Code of Conduct. Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. And secondly, our event guidelines. This session is being recorded and will be available on demand through the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel in about 24 to 48 hours. I'll be sharing the link in the chat for our channel. And if you have not been on a live stream through YouTube before, please note that you must create an account on YouTube in order to access and interact in the chat. You can set that up now. And if you're unable to use the chat but have questions, feel free to reach out to us through social media or on Meetup. Which brings us to today's session. I'm going to bring in our speaker for the day, Veronica. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. It's good to be here.
Fantastic. We're so happy to have you again at the Reactor. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, take it away.
Thank you. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Veronica Kolesnikova, and today we'll be talking about Azure OpenAI. So mostly I'll be providing lots of theoretical parts, how that all works behind the scene, what is Azure OpenAI in general, and then in the end, I would like to tell you a little more about bots in general, and then show you a demo how you can integrate your Azure OpenAI service with your smart bot. So let's move forward there. To next slide. I just want to tell you a couple of things about me. Again, my name is Veronica Kolesnikova. I am 4 times Microsoft MVP in AI, which is really exciting. I have my master's in information technology. I started my career as a quality assurance engineer, and then I moved to development. I used to work mostly with Microsoft technologies like C#, .NET. I like cross-platform options with Xamarin and now with Maui. I'm obviously obsessed with machine learning and artificial intelligence. And recently I started working more with Node.js and Java, in addition to all that fun stuff that I worked before. And my hobbies are dancing, traveling, and aerial yoga or aerial fitness, depends on how you want to call it. And if you have any questions about my hobbies, feel free to reach out to me through my social media, Twitter, LinkedIn. If you want to add me on LinkedIn, please write a couple of words, how you know me, why you want to connect. That is very important because sometimes it can get really out of hands with LinkedIn. On Twitter, usually my DMs are open. So if you have any questions related to whatever I'm going to tell you today, the content, or you just want to chat about AI and machine learning, feel free to reach out and follow me on Twitter as well. And I am gonna move forward. And actually, yeah, one more thing before I move forward. If you have any questions during my session today, feel free to post them in the chat there, and I will try to get back to them as fast as possible. Sometimes I'm getting carried away, but I'll try to make pauses to answer all your questions. So before talking a little more about OpenAI and Azure OpenAI specifically, I would like to provide more general information so we can set that base level all together with information about artificial intelligence and machine learning. You all know that those two things are everywhere. You can hide from them. They're integrated in all parts of our life. Sometimes even if you don't know that you're using artificial intelligence and machine learning, then you are still using them because you just can't hide from them. Especially right now, they're just everywhere. And sometimes it might be confusing how artificial intelligence relates to machine learning. Are they working together? Are they not working together? What's going on there? How they relate to each other? That actually is supposed to be a really fun interactive slide, but I guess the way I'm sharing it is not possible, unfortunately. So you see it all at once, but that's totally fine. I can go and cover it step by step. So I'll start with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is it actually has more than 50 different definitions. In general, it is something that we as humans are good at, but machines are not. So we as data scientists, machine learning specialists, developers, we are trying to mimic human logic by using if-then rules, decision trees, and other techniques. Next one, there we have machine learning, and machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. With vast amount of data that we have, we want our machines, our tools that we're building, improve tasks with experience, and for that we're using machine learning techniques. Next layer there is deep learning, and deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Again, with the amount of data that we're getting, and we have more and more data everywhere, we want to use it in the most efficient way. So we are building those multi-layered neural networks to not only train our machines to be better tasks with experience, but also perform more complex tasks like image recognition, speech recognition, language understanding. So if you worked with Azure Cognitive Services, for example, they are based on the deep learning techniques. And then the last one here is generative AI, which is doesn't spell well here because of the size of the slide, unfortunately. But that is generative AI. It is not truly a subset of deep learning, but I just put it there kind of to mark its place in that universe of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Some people think that generative AI is pretty new, but it's actually not. People started working on it a while ago, and it just got really popular with the improvements and better accessibility to those tools with OpenAI maybe was the first one that got really popular. And generative AI is machine learning, artificial intelligence tools that can not only get better with experience, but they also can generate new content, something that they never saw, never learned. And you probably um, know at least about a couple of examples other than ChatGPT that is able to answer questions. Maybe GPT-4 that I'm going to talk more about it in next couple of slides. That can generate actual articles and content for you. You probably worked or at least saw or heard about Midjourney that can generate images. So there are lots of examples of generative AI that you probably heard of. Okay, now I want to talk specifically about OpenAI and Azure OpenAI. There might be some confusion how they related to each other. Those two, Microsoft and OpenAI, those are two separate companies. They're just partnering on that initiative where OpenAI has their own um, services. OpenAI, you can just go to their portal and then see what they're offering. And then Microsoft is actually using those services and kind of wrapping up in that Azure infrastructure. So you can use all the benefits of Azure with OpenAI. And sometimes people are saying one is faster, one is slower. I don't have definitive answer which one is faster. I think they're both companies, Microsoft and OpenAI, they're working um, together on some stuff. They're working separately on other stuff. So different tasks might be slower or faster with one or another. So it depends what you personally prefer. I will be focusing on Azure OpenAI. So every time from now on, every time when I say OpenAI, I mean Azure OpenAI. And Azure OpenAI currently, it's a cognitive service. So if you worked with other cognitive services, maybe Lewis Language Understanding Intelligence Service, or actually they actually moved that. So it's not actually called Lewis anymore. I think they moved them under umbrella of that the conversational and text related cognitive services. But if you worked with any kind of cognitive services, you probably know that you can connect to them using REST API, and also there are some SDKs that you can use. Some of those cognitive services, they are available in containers. Azure OpenAI is not available in containers. It's just really hard to put it inside the container because it's huge, it's massive. Okay, so those are two things. Basically, you are getting in Azure OpenAI, you are getting all the benefits of Azure plus all the benefits of OpenAI there. So really cool. Definitely recommend to check it out. Next, I want to talk about some basic information that you need to understand before jumping and trying whether it's Azure OpenAI or OpenAI. Um, I want to mention prompts and completions. Prompts, they're basically prompts. It is everything that is being um, in, provided as an input to those OpenAI models. So there are different types of models that I'm gonna talk specifically later on. But basically all the input that you are providing, that is a prompt. They're uh, usually there's separation between system prompt, is that initial um, kind of input or initial system message that you are providing to, for example, ChatGPT, where you setting up the boundaries. For example, if it's a mushroom bot and you don't want it to answer anything else, then you can say you're a mushroom specialist and you are not supposed to talk about anything else. I am talking about mushrooms because it was a good example from Seth Juarez. And if you're interested in OpenAI or AI in general, I do recommend to check out his show. I think it's every Monday, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely take a look and check it on YouTube, or I think it's streamed somewhere else online. Yeah, so going back to prompts, you have that first system prompt that kind of sets up the environment, sets up restrictions for future conversation. And then completions is basically all the outputs from your OpenAI model. All it can be It doesn't have to be a chat. It can be a chat. So you are writing a question, and then the answer is basically a completion. Also, if it's just maybe you wanted to finish your article and then you provide a couple of examples there, and then OpenAI models will continue writing the article for you. That is also a completion. Actually, there are a couple of approaches there how you can interact with OpenAI models. It is a zero shot where you are not when you're not providing any examples, so the model will have to figure it out for you or for itself. It can be one shot where you provide just one example, and then using that example, the model continue and provides completions there. And it can be a few shot where you provide a couple of examples for the model, and then based on those examples, the model will provide further outputs. Next, I want to move to tokens. I am sure you heard about tokens. Everyone is talking about it because that's a limitation. So you can just throw all the information that you have into your model, and then can be overwhelmed. There is restrictions, so depending on what kind of model you are using, what kind of group of model, if it's GPT-3 or GPT-4, I think the biggest option, the most tokens that GPT-4 can accept is 32,000 tokens. That is the latest from GPT-4. I think it's called GPT-4 35K. If you're using that model, then you can provide up to 32K tokens. And tokens, they are not, it can be a word if it's a short word, or usually it is a piece of word which is maybe 3 to 4 letters long, and then all the inputs and outputs, they are being split by those tokens, and then that way you calculate it. Same thing with you want to restrict answers. If you, for example, creating a chatbot using ChatGPT, and you don't want ChatGPT to provide the whole huge answer, where maybe when your user will have to read for like an hour, maybe not an hour, but at least 10 minutes. You want shorter answer, so you can tweak how many tokens you want the model to return. There are also tokenizers online. I am not gonna lie, I don't remember exact URL, but if you can probably search it online, a tokenizer, and see how many tokens are in your text and how your text is being split into those tokens, just to better understand how the tokens work. And last one here is currently there are two APIs available for you to play with Azure OpenAI. That is Chat Completion API and Completion API. So it depends what you want. You want it to be more in like chat childlike interaction, or you want it to be completion, where you can maybe complete an article, or maybe complete you already have some kind of chat, and then you want your completion API to continue that chat. I don't know, it might be a book, it might be something creative that you want to do with completion API, but that something that doesn't have to be in the chat form. Okay, so now I want to talk about Azure OpenAI models, and those are not specific models, those are model families. And again, I had really pretty, really pretty animation here, but the way I'm sharing the slides, you're just gonna see them all together here, but I don't think it's a problem. I'm just gonna describe them one by one. We'll start with GPT-4 um, model family. It is the latest and greatest. It can do basically anything you want, and can all those models that inside GPT-4, they can um, provide creative work for you. They're very powerful. They support up to, again, up to 32K there, but they're bigger comparing to GPT 3.5 Turbo. And that Turbo shows us that those models that are part of that family, they are actually smaller. They're in some cases faster. Maybe they're not as powerful as GPT-4 models, but they're pretty powerful and fast and more agile, so-called. So it depends what kind of scenario you are working on. So maybe you don't have to use GPT-4 all the time, and you can actually use GPT 3.5 for your tasks, and those models will work better. And then ChatGPT is also part of GPT 3.5 Turbo. Um, Next family of models here is GPT-3. There are a couple of models specifically included in that family of models, and there are four models there. It is Ada, Babbage, Curie, and Da Vinci. Da Vinci being the most powerful one, and then Ada being the least powerful one. Again, it depends on what kind of application you are building. Actually, Microsoft recommends to start with the most powerful one and then kind of downgrade it to see if maybe the least powerful one can still perform well. The least powerful the model, the less you are paying. So it's mostly cost related, and also all those models that are inside that model family, a group of models together, they are more focused on specific tasks. Like some of them work better with text, some of them work better with conversations and maybe summarization of text. So you need to go and check what those models can do. And then I'm going to show you the Azure OpenAI portal, where you can actually pick what kind of model you want to use, and then you can deploy them and remove them and change them. So when you play with them, there's also playground there. So there are lots of opportunities to try them before actually using them with your product or with your solutions. Next group of models here is Codex. So those Codex models, there are two of them. I'm not gonna name them because I don't want to lie about their names. But I remember there are two models inside the Codex family. So those models are specifically trained on the code. Most of them trained on the code that is open source and available on GitHub. Codex model, they are specifically they're the best. They were specifically trained on code, so they're the best with code, writing um, tests for your code. They support in multiple languages, so you can maybe use Codex model to convert from one coding language to another. There are lots of tasks that you can use Codex model for. There's also that notion that, okay, if I create GPT-4 model, then it's so powerful, it can do anything for me. It can write code, it can um, summarize the text. It can do everything, but maybe you don't need to use that very powerful model if you are, for example, only using it to write tests for your code. GPT-4 was trained on vast amount of data, but Codex model, they were trained specifically on the code, so they are better with the code. So again, it depends what kind of software you're building, what kind of tasks you need to solve and issues solve. Then pick and choose. It doesn't mean that you need to throw GPT-4 at everything. Be mindful, but that. And then also there are smaller models that they call embeddings. Um, so there are 3 of them available currently. I do recommend to check them out. They are for smaller tasks, maybe text management there. I do recommend to check them too as well. Maybe they're not as powerful as the GPT models, but again, it is cost related and it is task related. So if you don't need a powerful model, then definitely check other options there, other families. And there in the bottom, I actually have a structure. So when you are deploying, when you're choosing, first you're choosing your model and then deploying your model, specific model, not just the model family there, you'll get something like a structure that is something like you have in the bottom here. So we have capability. So some of those models, they have double capabilities, like they can work with text or they can work with documents, for example. And then family, that's name of the family, and then input type, and then identifier. Because even if you choose a model, there are a couple of versions of that model available. So be mindful about that. Okay, I see a question. Does GPT-4 32K available on Azure? It is available on Azure. There's the whole process there, how you can apply to access it. So first you need to apply to access Azure OpenAI in general, and then there's a separate application for GPT-4 models. But they're there. I'm not sure if they're in private preview or anyone can apply. I'm not gonna lie. So I do recommend to check in those applications and apply first to Azure OpenAI and then go from there. Okay. So next here, that unfortunately doesn't look pretty either. But I'm gonna walk you through the options there, the use cases. I mentioned a lot of them, maybe pretty much all of them before, so they're not new. Um, chats and conversational interaction, that's the first thing that comes to mind. ChatGPT is just crazy popular. Everyone knows about it, no matter where you go. So that's maybe the first use case that comes to mind, but that's not the only use case that you can use all those OpenAI models. You can use them for code generation and transformation scenarios that I mentioned before. So you can write your code, you can write tests using Copilot, for example, or you can directly, implement your custom solution using the Codex models. And then maybe you want to use it for code transformation as well, converting from one language to another, for example. Next use case there is journalistic content, create articles, write books, you name it, all the creative power there. Um, but again, you need to remember about the limitations, the token limitation, and then it's all about prompting. If you create correct prompt, then you'll get better content. Also, the longer interaction and the more tweaks you have, the more that back and forth that you have with the model, um, more chances that the model will hallucinate, um, the yeah, and provide some random information. Next option here is question answering. So you can just, it doesn't have to be a chat. It can be just one question, and then model can provide an answer, or that few shot prompting that I mentioned before, where you can maybe provide a couple of examples, maybe ask a question and provide a couple of examples, and then the model can complete by kind of using your examples and just continue the list. That is also an option there. Next, it can reason over structured and unstructured data. Next, it can perform search. Search is not that so. There were some announcements maybe last week and the week before regarding search. Um, you need to understand that the model itself doesn't do the search. So if it's connected to search, then it can also do the search. There is also that the way that you personally can augment the model by maybe connecting it to the cognitive search. Um, then you can do search inside using your data, and then feed that information to the OpenAI, one of the OpenAI models, and then continue from there. So there are lots of opportunities there. That's why it's with a little star. So it's not part of the model specifically, but they're combining search with capabilities of model. So it can now do the search as well. Next is summarization, any kinds of text summarization. It can also, I think they talked about it last week at Build, where it can kind of um, provide you better understanding of what the code does. So it not only writes you the code, it can also kind of summarize and tell you what it does. And the last one here is writing assistant. I already mentioned that kind of scenario before. Now, now I want to talk a little bit about responsible AI. I know I have a lot of content, so I'm trying to kind of wrap it up so we can move to the demo as fast as possible. There is a transparency node available that if you start working with Azure OpenAI, I do recommend to check transparency node. There are several principles that Microsoft and other companies actually came up with. All those responsible AI principles, they are kind of similar. Maybe they put it in different words. Different companies put them in different words, but the core of those principles, they are kind of all the same. And transparency is one of the principles. So you need to understand how the model that you are using works. It has to be transparent, so you need to understand what is going on there before actually using it. So I do recommend to read transparency note. It is kind of tricky with large language models because they are large. It is just impossible to go and figure out what each node does and what data goes where. But usually they treat it as black box, and then by tweaking inputs, they get in different outputs, and you see what you need to tweak in the inputs to get different outputs, and that's the way to kind of see how the model works when it's a black box model, or when it's just so large that you can dissect it node by node. There's also content filtering inside OpenAI models. There's additional content filtering that comes with, uh, if you're using Bing, for example, there are several layers for content filtering, both incoming and outgoing. There is also an option to opt out from not entire content filtering, obviously, but Microsoft doesn't usually know what kind of information is being passed to the model and from the model. But if some input or output marked flagged with, you know, inappropriate content flag or something like that, then Microsoft actually has the right to go and see what information was provided there. You can opt out of it, but it's totally up to you what you prefer. There are pros and cons in opting in and opting out as well. And then there's also abuse monitoring. That is kind of related to the content filtering, and gated access that I mentioned as part of my answer to the question. There are a couple of forms that you need to fill out to get access to Azure OpenAI. It is not open for everyone. You can play with it. There are lots of tools available online, playgrounds where you can just try it. But in order to actually implement it in your solutions, you need to be approved specifically by Microsoft. Okay, and now really quickly, I want to talk about bots. So if you haven't worked with bots, if you never created one, you kind of have that quick overview of what's going on with the bots there. And bot in general, it is a piece of software or a tool, whatever you want to call it, that can understand the question and then as a result perform some kind of action or provide an answer. Are bots the same as virtual assistants? In my opinion, they are. The core of every virtual assistant is a bot. It is just maybe more capable, connected to more things that can understand speech and text. But you can actually connect your bots to different channels, and I'm going to mention it in a little bit. What those channels are. Here I have a couple of examples like Siri and Cortana. They are virtual assistants, also they're bots. Clippy, Smarter Child. I've never used it, so if you have, then you have reference here. And then Tay, I do want to share an example because it's one of my favorite examples of how not to build your bot. And that data is very important. But since we're short on time, I do recommend for you to actually search it online about Tay, and it's a good learning opportunity. Okay, now how you can create a bot. There are so many different tools that you can use for bot creations from all the companies, all the big tech giants, and also open source options from other like smaller companies. But today, since we are focusing on Microsoft solutions, then I'm going to mention what Microsoft is offering. The main thing there is bot framework SDK. So if you have experience building bots, you know how they work, or maybe you just love to build everything from scratch and you want to be in 100% control right from the beginning, then you're just getting that bot framework SDK. Open your favorite IDE, maybe Visual Studio, getting that SDK, and then starting building your bot from scratch. And also in those next options that I have there, the bot framework SDK is in the core. It's already there. Next one is Azure Bot. That is a resource on Azure. It used to be called Azure Web App Bot. Now they changed a couple of things there and renamed to Azure Bot. You have When you create that resource, you have access to all the benefits of Azure right from the get-go. You have access to login. You have access to different properties and keys, and then um, you know tags and access levels. It's all there right from the beginning. Also, you don't have to start with the Azure resource because as soon as you create it, then you start acquiring the cost. Maybe you can start building something on your machine first, and then you can deploy it to that Azure bot resource. But it's totally up to you which way you prefer to work. And then another one is Azure bot channels registration here. And here I have a little picture with some of the channels that are available there. So you can create your bot and then connect the same bot to different channels. You just need to be mindful of what kind of input and what kind of output, what kind of input your bot understands and what kind of output it produces. Because if it's a voice first channel, maybe it's Alexa channel, and it is voice first, and then your bot doesn't understand voice, then you'll have some troubles there. So be mindful before building your bot what kind of channels you're planning to use. There are a couple of here, like all kinds of messengers, Teams, Twilio, email, and stuff like that. And another set of tools that you can use to build your bots, Azure Health Bot. Um, if you are building specifically bots for health-related purposes, it is not a ready solution, but Azure Health Bot is actually HIPAA compliant out of the box. It is a good base level or framework for all your health-related bots. So I do recommend to check it out if you're working with maybe medical schools or hospitals or building any other health-related bots. And next one here is Power Virtual Agent. That is a low-code, no-code option. Maybe if you have mixed team where you have developers and non-developers, maybe one part of a bot can be built with the code, and another part can be built with PVA. PVA is part of Power Platform, and then not all. Even if you are a developer and you know how to write code, not every time you need to do it. And you want to do it. So PVA is a good option when you don't want to write code or it's not possible for some reason. It can be a really fast, easy option to just use those widgets, drag and drop them, and then get your really powerful bot that way as well. And there's also a bot composer. That option, there were talks that it would be deprecated potentially. It is not deprecated yet. It is there. Microsoft just doesn't work actively on adding new features or improving bot composer. I know it is open source, so people from the community working on some parts of it. But Bot Composer, it's basically an IDE for all your bot related needs, where you can see the flows of your conversations, where when you are using templates there, then you also get in your um, solution with the code that you can open in Visual Studio, for example, or you can use that IDE and maybe create bot that way. Okay, and here's the full infrastructure of your virtual assistant. Starts with the bot framework in the core, then you connect it to machine learning models or cognitive services, your custom models as well, connected to different channels that can accept all kinds of input like text and speech and so on. I actually got that image from Microsoft documentation. So thanks, Microsoft, for good images that I can use in my presentations. And then you can connect those bots to different devices. You can use all kinds of skills. Maybe your bot can answer questions and also send emails or perform some kind of actions. And there's also an option to pass the dialogue to another virtual assistant or a bot, or pass to real call center if it's an option. And now I want to move to the demo and show you really quickly what you can do. Thank you. Okay, so I'll start with the Azure portal, where you actually need to create your Azure OpenAI um, um, Azure OpenAI resource here, and then you'll have access to the endpoint, and then you'll get the keys that you can use to actually access Azure OpenAI. Um, that is kind of the core thing that you need to do before actually moving and started picking the model. There are, as always, there are lots of links that will help you with how to start and how to deploy your model, and how to start making those API calls. So once you create that resource, then you can actually click right from here and go to Azure OpenAI Studio. I already have Azure OpenAI Studio open here. Um, OpenAI open, yeah, it is all here. So again, you see a couple of examples that you can use, especially if you just starting with it, you are playing it with it for the first time. It can be useful to just see what examples. Um, Oh yeah, they have link right from here. So once you get access to Azure OpenAI, and then you need to access GPT-4 specifically, here is the link right from here to get more information how you can get access to GPT-4. And yeah, you can see the responsible AI principles, which is very important. If you're working with AI, even if you're not building your models from scratch, that is very important to understand that your model that you are using, the tools, the machine learning based tools are acting responsibly, which is very, very important. So I do recommend to go and read about that. um, then I want to show you the models that are available here. Those are the models. I actually have access to both GPT-4, GPT-4 35K, because I requested them specifically. But if you don't have access to GPT-4, you can still access all other models here. And sometimes you don't even need to have access to GPT-4. I do recommend to start with maybe GPT 3.5 Turbo, which one that one is really good. And I have all those three deployed. That's why they are all no. So Code DaVinci, that is one of the Codex models, which is focused more on the code-related tasks, like writing code, converting the code, and stuff like that. And then there are other types of models like working with text and stuff like that. And yeah, I have GPT 3.5 Turbo deployed as well. There is a way to create a custom model. It's not really a custom model, it's just fine tuning. You probably heard about that. It is no one is actually encouraged. There's more discouragement going on about fine tuning because those models, they were already trained on vast amount of data. Um, pretty much all the data that is available on internet. Um, so it's just unbelievable how much data those models were trained on. And unless you have something unique and that you can't see anywhere else, maybe you build in your startup with completely different language and terms that you're using, maybe then you need to consider fine tuning. But usually that you can use one of the model out of the box and then maybe augmented with cognitive search, for example, maybe augmented with your custom models. So you can use custom models that you already have, and then pass data back and forth. There are lots of confusions about fine tuning. Some Lots of people actually don't want to have their data used for training purposes. So be mindful about that. Not always you need to use fine tuning. You can use augmentation, and that is useful and powerful tool. Uh, in a lot of cases, better than fine tuning. Okay, and here you can see just all my deployments. You can see all those same deployments from the Azure portal. So you need to go here to check what deployments you already have. There's also Playground that you can use to check how your models are um, working. Maybe you can create your system message here. That's that initial prompt that I mentioned. And then and then you can also use some templates here. You can see raw JSON right here. And then you can view code, which is very awesome. Then you get the code in the language that you prefer. So currently it's JSON, Python, C#, and curl. So in lots of cases, you don't need to write code from scratch. You can just grab it from here, all the connection pieces for your Azure OpenAI, and then use it in your solutions. Okay, and then same thing with completion. You can pick your deployment here, and then pick an example, or start from scratch and create your own example there. Temperature, the higher temperature, the more creative the responses. So if you want it to be more creative, then put higher temperature, and then you can tweak the max number of tokens that you wanted to return. And yeah, so by tweaking all those parameters, you can see how the output actually changes. And now, really quickly, I know we have only 7 minutes left here. I do want to go back to the bot option that I created. That was really a quick solution there. What I used a template inside my Visual Studio for bots. So all of that, actually, that Echo bot came from the template. I just added OpenAI there. So here we have actual connection to Azure OpenAI. It's in that bot services file. I do have that code deployed, not deployed, I have that code in GitHub. So if you want to check, but it's a really simple, straightforward example. Most of the bot stuff actually comes from the template, and then you need to just connect it to OpenAI. I use that OpenAI client that is an SDK, C# SDK. And then I use the URL and the keys from Azure portal when I created the resource, and then I use that model. I have a couple of models deployed there. I'm using GPT bot model, which is GPT 3.5 Turbo there. And here, I'm just getting a question from a customer or end user, whatever you want to call, and feeding it to the model. And then I'm using temperature 0.7. So, and then max return tokens, it's 800. Those can be tweaked. I put those numbers pretty much randomly here because I didn't have real purpose for that bot other than just demo purpose. And actually, that is not the best approach because I don't have that initial system prompt here. I am starting feeding users questions right away, which is not good because I do want to create not just I think it's just recommended to have the system prompt so you kind of can um, control your bot and kind of provide those boundaries so it doesn't just spit random information and it is answering better. Yeah, I didn't include the system prompt here. So, and then, you know, that's pretty much it. That's the Echo bot that I started with. It starts with hello and welcome, and then it kind of, sending that activity. So all the inputs are being sent to the model, and then model will provide the answers there. Um, you can also include um, your layers of security, like you can analyze inputs and outputs before actually, displaying them to your end users or before feeding them to the model. That is also possible. I didn't include it here. How you can test the bot? Actually, I haven't opened it yet. Um, there's a bot framework emulator that you can use. It is free to use. It's you can just download it online. It's also open source, so you can see the code in GitHub. But you basically start your bot from your Visual Studio. And it's been open in localhost, and then you can connect to your bot from here. I already tested it, so I have that URL here. If you have different layers of security, then you can provide the app ID and other information here before connecting to it. And that's the way to test it. On welcome, and then I can start asking questions. For example, what can oh, you do? And then, that's the standard response that comes from Azure OpenAI. Since I didn't put any boundaries around it, that actually what comes out. And you can see what is being provided, what is the post, what's the post there, and what information we are sharing between the service and the client. Okay, so that was very fast. I can talk about AI for hours and hours. And before wrapping it up, actually, I want to see if there are any questions. Okay, there is one question that I see. What are types of pricing plans used for Azure OpenAI bot? Um, those two things, there's bot and then there's Azure OpenAI. For bot, you can just, go ahead, use template created, and it's going to be free until you deploy it to Azure. Once you deploy it to Azure, again depends on what kind of layer you choose. Depends on how many channels you connect to, depends on how many messages you wanted to process. So I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not going to tell you exact numbers there, but bot resource is not really expensive. Yeah, um, that's the short answer. And for Azure OpenAI, they also have separate price in there. But yeah, again, there is an option. You probably saw it in the portal. Where is it? This one. Yeah, you probably saw where you can plan. You can choose your pricing tier, for example, and then there's the standard one for now. And there is also cost analysis here where you can kind of plan how active you want to use. But basically, the more tokens you are inputting and outputting, the more expensive it gets. Also, the more powerful model you use, the more expensive it gets again. So GPT-4 is going to be more expensive than GPT 3.5 Turbo. Okay, I think we are 1 minute over. I saw a good response in the chat as well. Yeah, so okay, I hope I was able to answer a question. And yeah, that's it, I guess. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be part of Reactor Initiative and being able to share knowledge about AI, which I really love. And if you want to reach out to me, feel free to find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. And yeah, thank you so much.